Testing 1, 2, testing 1, 2. This is the segment on time management. So when it comes to time management, there's a secret that you should know, and that is that it's really not about managing time. Time flows like a river. It's like trying to say, I'm going to interrupt this river and I'm going to chop it into little pieces and use those pieces in ways that are going to serve me in my business or in developing the organization that we're working on. So what is it that we're really managing then? We're deeply managing ourselves. And so how can we possibly do that? I'd like to give you an opportunity to think about time just a little bit differently. Now, you may have seen this demonstration before, but I'd like to share it with you today because it underscores what we're going to be doing in the work that we're working on together. And that is the idea of time in terms of big stones, pebbles, and sand. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, when you think about managing your time or what we're doing, we're going to be thinking about what happens in the day when you wake up. Well, the day is already filled with things. It can be just making coffee in the morning or getting the kids off to school. It can be getting to work or opening up the laptop or checking your social media on the phone. It can be anything that has to do with family and problems, being able to fix the technology or get back to people. It's emails, it's returning those calls that are so annoying. All of the interruptions and our friends dropping by or asking us to pop in just to solve a little quick problem. So these are the things that you might think of as the sand. Now, what are we going to do about that? Well, we want to rethink that and think about, well, what are the more important things that get inserted in the day? Well, that can be anything from, being able to attend meetings. Those are like the pebbles. There are meetings everywhere. In fact, they interrupt us so much, it's very difficult for us to do our work. So we may be in meetings, we're writing our to-do lists, we're checking things off, and those are like the pebbles. And finally, we have to think about, oh my gosh, it's almost the end of the day. What were the big stones? What are the things that I have to accomplish today? The big stones have to do with maybe your quarterly requirements or the direction, the vision you have for the company. Maybe it's conducting a consultation with your clients. These are some of the big issues that you have to take account of to be successful in your work. Can be growth targets. It can be shrinking inventory, maybe developing new products. But what we know is that takes a lot of deep concentration and it's harder work. So this is how I like to demonstrate time in terms of the stones, pebbles, and sand. So if we think about what we're doing when we're talking on the phone, swiping through social media, on Instagram and streaming videos. It's a little bit like working with sand. If the glass container is your day, the sand is what fills up this day with all of those little interruptions. Now, what else happens during the day? Well, we have some of those big events, the phone calls that have to be returned, the client that's upset, the tech that breaks down. Those would be like the pebbles in our shoe or the pebbles in our meetings. So here we are, and now we have our day practically filled up to the top. So we have all of the things that we've spent a lot of time on. Then we had a few minutes to worry about some of these bigger issues. And at the end of the day, we say, oh no, I've got to arrange that quarterly meeting. I've got big clients that I want to bring in on contract. And so you start looking at where are you going to find your time for the big stones. There's barely any time left. So what's the lesson? Of course, force that we want to take away from this illustration, we want to begin with our big stones. When we fill our cup with the big stones, you'll notice that yes, your cup, the day, looks full. But then when you add the sand and the pebbles, you have lots of opportunity to add some of those other parts of the work. So sand and pebbles will fill your cup. And then when you think it's completely full, you might say, oh, there's no time left in my day. Well, there's always time for a little cup of coffee with your colleagues and your friends. So let's reframe time. There are a couple of techniques that I like to use. One comes particularly from, it's really quite old, but it was really reintroduced by Cal Newport. Cal Newport is a professor at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., where I actually am an alma mater. I got my master's degree in systems engineering, knowledge and management from GW in Washington, D.C. But Cal Newport is a very young, new professor. He began to recognize where people fell down was in something called deep work. He said that with all of this interruption of social media and Instagram and streaming videos, that we're losing our capacity to think hard on hard problems. And he said part of the problem is that our attention is divided so much. Every time we switch our attention from one task or project or person to another, not only are we taking time away from what we're doing, the important thing is that we're creating a residual cost. It takes additional time for us to switch, refocus, and then dive in sufficiently deeply to do meaningful or purposeful work. And so we have to take account of what's called switching costs. And the way that Cal Newport recommended that we could manage this differently, and I can tell you from my own experience what a profound change it made when I did my own time inventory. Now, I like to think about myself as somebody who works really hard, spends a lot of time working. I'm always on the internet, I'm researching, I'm getting materials that I can use to write some of these courses. So in my mind, I was always working. So I made a notation every 15 minutes during my day. I noted, was I doing deep work or superficial work, or was in fact I just switching between tasks? The first day I did all of this, I continued with my day, I made some little records, and then I took the account at the end of the day, and I was pretty shocked. I was kind of horrified at my own results. I discovered that 75% of my day was in switching instead of deep work. And that explains the frustration I had, that I never seemed to get as much done in the day as I needed to get done. I felt like I was working hard, but I wasn't productive. So what did it do for me? The awareness itself shocked me into thinking twice every time I was about to switch tasks and say, do I need to do that? Is that really an important piece of work? Or am I interrupting or looking for an escape from the deep work? Because that's often what procrastination is. Procrastination is an opportunity for us to avoid some things that are either difficult or that cause us discomfort. Now, it's okay because everybody gets uncomfortable solving difficult problems. We are more comfortable when we have the answers. So we want to jump to the answers without doing all of the necessary deep work that will likely deliver a higher return on our invested time if we solve the core issue and stop putting band-aids, right, on just symptoms. So the second day, just being aware of that alone, I was able to do about 50% deeper work and still was struggling with 50% of these distractions. He calls technology, for example, weapons of mass distraction. Now, there's a price that we pay for that distraction. But here's the good news. By the third day, I was able to flip the script on my own behavior and attention, and I was doing 75% deep work, 25% in switching costs and changing, looking at different things. The value that I was able to create by the third day was significant. And when I talk about us managing ourselves and not just managing time, when we have these experiences and we invite other people to collaborate with us and or work with peers or direct reports, or we contract people to provide services to us, we can be more precise in what we're asking them to do and how to do it and what the deliverable is. And these are some of the powerful tools, the leverage of really focused leadership. I hope that that was helpful. Again, think of big stones, pebbles, and sand. If you've got a lot of sand, you might be firefighting. What would the big stone be? Writing the fire prevention manual. So with those tips, I hope that that will serve you well as a leader, and we will move on to the other key levers of leadership.